The engine of my old sedan hummed softly as I pulled into the cracked asphalt lot beside Millie's diner. It was one of those dragging mornings, gray skies, lukewarm coffee, and every red light feeling like it had something personal against me. I wasn't expecting much out of the day, just a hot meal and a chance to sit in silence for a while. But then, flashing lights lit up my rearview mirror. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating from lack of caffeine. But no, there they were, bright and obnoxious, cutting through the fog of my thoughts. And here's the kicker. It wasn't a patrol car. It wasn't even a real police vehicle. Slapped on the side in cheap decals were the words Community Enforcement Division, HOA. The door creaked open, and out stepped someone who looked like she'd modeled herself after a traffic cone and a military drill sergeant. Meet Denise, the kind of person who was never handed authority but went ahead and stole it anyway. She strutted toward my car like the sidewalk owed her rent, every click of her boots louder than it needed to be. I rolled down my window and waited, half expecting her to demand tribute like some medieval tax collector. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" she asked, her voice clipped, like she'd rehearsed this in front of the mirror 1,000 times. I glanced toward the diner, where 2 sheriff cruisers were parked in front. Through the window, I could see 4 uniformed officers chuckling over breakfast like this was the most peaceful town in America. "No," I said honestly because I didn't. "Just trying to grab lunch." "You were parked too close to a hydrant," she replied, as if I'd just committed grand larceny. I blinked, then glanced back at the bright red hydrant tucked awkwardly behind a crooked sign. I raised an eyebrow. "In front of a diner full of sheriff's deputies? Are you sure this is the hill you want to die on?" She didn't even twitch. "I'm the authority here," she snapped, tapping the side of her car like it meant something. "I don't need their approval." And that was when it really hit me. This was a woman who had mistaken an HOA badge for a real one and decided she was judge, jury, and executioner of parking laws. I couldn't help but laugh, not out of amusement, but disbelief. The absurdity of it all felt like a scene from a bad sitcom. Before I knew it, I was out of the car. "You know what?" I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Maybe the sheriff's department should weigh in on this." She squared her shoulders. "I can have your car towed. Right now. You want that?" I stared at her, then past her to the laughing officers inside the diner. "I think I prefer pancakes." I walked toward the diner, half expecting her to tackle me from behind. But she stayed rooted to the spot, her expression somewhere between smug and uncertain. I pushed open the door, and the warmth of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee hit me like a hug from an old friend. Millie's was one of those no-frills places, the kind that served decent food, mediocre coffee, and a slice of calm in a world spinning too fast. Only today, calm was out the window. The booth near the window hosted 3 officers and a deputy I didn't recognize. They glanced up lazily, then turned back to their hash browns and whatever story had them grinning. I walked past them and sat at the counter. The waitress, a thin woman in her 50s named Dana, poured me a cup without a word. Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back to her notepad. "You see her out there?" I asked. Dana didn't answer. She just wiped her hands on her apron and walked away. That was all I needed. I stood and approached the booth of sheriffs. "Hey," I said, nodding toward the window. "What's the deal with your HOA traffic cop out there?" The laughter died. The officer with the thick mustache, name tag, Red Sheriff Clive Weston, looked up, his face a perfect mask of forced patience. "What now?" he asked, slow and cautious. "Denise," I said, as casually as I could, "pulled me over for parking too close to a hydrant. You guys okay with her pulling drivers over like she's got a badge?" There was a beat of silence. One of the younger deputies shifted in his seat, glancing nervously at the others. Weston finally spoke. "Denise handles community compliance. She's not a cop, but she's got authority within the HOA." I raised an eyebrow. "Enough authority to act like she's highway patrol?" "She's enthusiastic," said another deputy, choosing his words carefully. "That enthusiasm's turning into harassment," I said, keeping my voice calm. "And you all know it." Weston's eyes narrowed. "This isn't your business, friend." "That's where you're wrong," I said. She made it my business the second she started acting like she runs this town. And the fact that you're all sitting here letting it happen, you don't know what you're talking about. Weston snapped. This isn't something you need to get involved in. But by then, it was too late. I had already involved myself. I couldn't walk away knowing what I knew, and neither could they. Right on cue, the door creaked open behind me. Well, came Denise's voice, dripping with faux sweetness. Looks like we've got ourselves a crowd. I turned slowly to face her. That's one way of putting it. The room shifted. Dana froze behind the counter. The younger deputies suddenly found their menus fascinating. Even Weston looked uncomfortable now. You've been stopping people, I said, facing her directly. Ticketing them for nonsense. Acting like you're law enforcement. You want to explain that? She stepped forward, arms crossed, face stiff. You don't know anything about how this community runs. You're right. I don't. But I know power trips when I see them. And from where I'm standing, this looks like a big one. She didn't respond. Her mouth opened, then closed. That moment of hesitation was everything. I wasn't the only one who noticed it. The younger deputy, his name tag Red Tyler, cleared his throat. He's not wrong, he said quietly. Denise snapped her head toward him. Excuse me. You've been pulling people over for things that don't matter. We all know it. We've seen it. And we haven't done anything. You little, she started, but Weston cut her off with a sharp look. That's enough, Denise, Weston said, and for the first time his voice didn't sound confident. It sounded tired. The room went quiet. Denise looked at the officers, one by one, but no one spoke up for her. She was alone now, the power she'd built on fear and compliance crumbling in real time. You need to step down, Weston said, his voice flat. Denise opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. No one needed to say anything more. Weston stood and motioned for her to follow him. Slowly, reluctantly, she did. As they left the diner, the silence they left behind was deafening. I turned back toward the counter. Dana was still behind it, her hand frozen over a coffee pot. She looked at me, and for the first time all morning, she smiled. Just a little. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but it was a start. One voice, one stand, and the truth had finally cracked the surface. As I stepped outside into the afternoon sun, I spotted Denise's car, still parked, still with its ridiculous decals. And I knew, deep down, that she wasn't the only one like her out there. But I also knew something else. Next time, I wouldn't be alone. And that was enough for now. Cuarto.